Imagine losing everything, not part of your money, not just a bad trade, everything, 2,300,000 wiped off the map. That was the lesson that marked Mark Douglas's life. He wasn't a beginner, he was a manager. He had experience, he had confidence, and he believed he understood the market. But it was precisely that blind confidence that destroyed him. In that moment, he understood that the problem wasn't in the charts, the news, or the system he used. The problem was within him, in the ego, in the illusion of control, in the idea that he could force the market to. Those who accept the pain of a stop-loss. Those who let go of instant gratification for a long-term vision. Those who resist the impulse to act just to do something. Most people don't understand this. Most people look for shortcuts. They chase the perfect strategy, the guaranteed setup, the indicator that always gets it right. And when they fail, they blame the market. Or worse, they blame themselves and quit, because they believe they weren't born for this. But what Douglas discovered is that no one is born ready. Every successful trader has walked through that dark tunnel. Every consistent trader had to destroy that illusion. They understood that trading is not about predicting, it's about adapting. It's not about controlling the market. It's about controlling yourself. And controlling yourself is the hardest part. That's why Mark used to say, the trader's greatest enemy is their own mind. Fear paralyzes, greed blinds, euphoria deceives, and pride destroys. The good news is that all of this can be trained. You can learn to think like a professional trader. You can develop a mindset based on probabilities, not certainties. You can train your mind to act with clarity even, in the middle of chaos. But for that, the first step is breaking the illusion. Stop looking for what's easy. Stop comparing yourself to false promises. Stop thinking that just because you understood the theory you're ready for. Practice. The market does not forgive fantasies. It reveals the truth with surgical precision. And the truth is that as long as you trade expecting to feel good, you will keep making bad decisions. The trader who wins is the one who feels fear and acts anyway, who feels discomfort but sticks to the plan, who understands that the market was not made to please you but to test you. And it is in this test that you are revealed, or lost. Will you keep chasing magic, or will you begin to build your discipline? The choice, as always, is yours. Mark. The market's brutal truth, it's never wrong. Douglas used to say, the market is never wrong, never. It may sound like a simple phrase, even obvious, but it hides one of the hardest truths to accept for any trader. When you lose, the mistake is never in the market. It's in you. The market is neutral, impersonal, indifferent. It doesn't care about your dreams, your debts, or how much you studied over the weekend. It is simply a reflection, brutally honest, of the collective behavior of millions of participants around the world. You may get angry, frustrated, or even feel betrayed, but the market has no emotion. It simply reveals reality. And that's where the problem begins. Most traders enter the market carrying unrealistic expectations. They believe that if they do everything right, the market has to respect their analysis. If a pattern appears, then the price should go up. If the news is positive, then the asset must increase in value. But the market doesn't care about should. It follows its own flow, driven by invisible forces, institutional decisions, manipulations you can't even see. And when you insist on trading based on what you think should happen, you go to war with reality. Mark Douglas called this the struggle against what is. And every time you fight against what is, you suffer. Suffering in trading comes from resistance, not from the loss itself, but from your attachment to the idea that it shouldn't have happened. The market dropped, but you expected it to rise, so you don't accept it. You keep the position open. Move the stop, hope, beg, act as if you could force reality to obey you. And the more you resist, the more the market punishes you. Do you know why? Because it's not going to. Change just because you want it to. It's like the ocean. You can learn to surf the waves, but you will never control them. And if you try to swim against them, you'll drown. True freedom in trading begins when you let go of the illusion of control, when you stop demanding the market to fit your will and start accepting what it is showing you. Acceptance is not passivity. It's clarity. It's understanding that your only role is to observe, interpret, act based on probabilities, and manage risk. You're not in the market to predict the future. You're here to respond to the present with emotional intelligence. 2. Recognize patterns, execute your plan, and accept the outcome without drama, without attachment, without guilt. That's the great distinction of the five of traders who win. They don't fight the chart. They don't blame the market. They don't panic when they lose. They observe, they correct, they evolve, and they move on. Mark Douglas learned this the hard way, losing millions by insisting he was right. For years he tried to beat the market with analysis, with logic, with expectation, until he understood that none of that matters if you're not flexible. The market doesn't care what you want. It only responds to what is, and that truth may be hard, but it's also liberating, because once you accept that the market is never wrong, you stop playing the victim and start growing. You take responsibility. You understand that every loss is a mirror, that every mistake reveals a distorted belief, that every stop is a reminder you still have something to learn. And that's the real game. It's not about being right. It's about adapting. So the next time you catch yourself saying this wasn't supposed to happen, oh, stop, breathe, and remember it happened because it had to happen. The market always reveals the truth. The question is, are you ready to accept it? If yes, you take a huge step toward consistency. If not, you'll remain a prisoner of illusions, trading against the only force that is never wrong, the market. Every trader begins full of hope, but few know that there is the 5 psychological stages every trader must pass through, an inevitable psychological path between illusion and mastery. Mark Douglas mapped out this path. And if you want to be among the 5 who succeed, you must understand the 5 stages of trader evolution. It doesn't matter if you've been in the market for 2 days or 2 years, you are in one of these stages right now. Stage 1, unconscious innocence. You've just arrived in the market. You're excited, full of energy. You discover that it's possible to make money from home with a computer using charts and a few strategies. It seems easy. You may have even been lucky in a few trades. At this stage, you don't know what you don't know. It's like driving a car for the first time and thinking you're ready to race on a Formula One track. The problem is that this confidence is born from ignorance, and it comes at a high price because inevitably you will lose. And when the loss arrives, you enter the second stage. Stage 2, painful awareness. Here, reality hits. You realize that trading is not as simple as you thought. Luck has vanished. The chart has become a monster. You study more, buy courses, test setups, search for the Holy Grail. But inside you are in conflict with each loss. Your confidence collapses. With each gain, you fear giving it all back. This is the hardest stage and also the longest, because you already know something is wrong, but you still don't understand what it is. You're trying to change your tools, but the real problem is in your mind. Mark Douglas said this is the point where most give up or blow their accounts or blame the market or simply burn out emotionally, but those who persist move on to the next level. Stage 3, conscious practice. Now you begin to understand that the enemy is not the market. It's you, your emotions, your beliefs, your ego. You start trading with rules. You define plans. You use stop losses. You manage risk, but you still need to be very alert. Any lapse and you fall back into old patterns. Anxiety shows up. The impulse wants to take control, and every trade becomes a psychological test. This is the stage of building discipline. It's exhausting but essential, because here you are reprogramming your mind. You are telling it, I am no longer a slave to emotion. I am in command now, and with time you evolve. Stage 4, unconscious competence. Without noticing, everything begins to flow. The rules are already in your blood. You enter the market calmly. You know you won't win every time, and that's okay. Your decisions are quick, but conscious. You no longer feel panic or euphoria. You are present. Consistency appears. The results improve. And more importantly, your inner peace grows. You're no longer trying to prove anything to the market. You're simply doing your job. But there is still one final stage. Stage 5, emotional mastery. Here you transcend technique. You are no longer trading. Trading happens through you. You read the market the way a maestro reads a score. It requires no effort, only presence. Your intuition is sharp, your judgment is clear, and your identity no longer depends on the outcome of a trade. Mark Douglas called this being an available trader, someone who demands nothing from the market but is ready for everything. This is where the true masters live. But remember, you cannot skip stages. Each one requires you to face a part of yourself, a belief, a fear, a lie you told yourself. to avoid pain. The question is, which stage are you in now? If it's the first, enjoy the enthusiasm, but open your eyes. If it's the second, don't give up. Pain is the beginning of awareness. If you're in the third, keep practicing. Discipline will lead you to freedom. And if you've reached the fourth, get ready, because mastery is just ahead. But never forget, the market doesn't transform anyone. It only reveals who you truly are. Have you ever made a decision in unseen forces that sabotage your trades? The market, and seconds later thought, why did I do that? Why did you enter late? Why did you move the stop? Why did you exit out of fear even though you had a plan? The answer lies in the invisible forces that control your behavior. Mark Douglas was one of the first to reveal this truth. You are not trading the market. You are trading your beliefs. Every click you make is shaped by past experiences, emotional wounds, and deep conditionings you don't even notice. He used to say, you don't see the market as it is. You see the market as you are. Let's simplify this. Imagine you were raised in an environment where losing was unacceptable. Maybe your parents punished you when you made mistakes. Maybe you learned that your value only came when you got things right. Now in trading, every stop loss triggers that old trauma. You feel pain, anger, shame, and worst of all, you try to avoid it at any cost. Not because the trade was bad, but because it hurt something inside you that still hasn't healed. Douglas called this unprocessed emotional energy. It lives in you like a ghost in your mouse. Click. It makes you trade before the signal, or not trade when you should, or go in heavy to make back a loss. And all of it seems logical in the moment, but afterward you realize it wasn't a technical decision. It was emotional. Another example, let's say, that as a child you heard things like, money doesn't grow on trees. All rich people are thieves. You'll never succeed without suffering a lot. Now you enter good trades and exit too quickly, or worse, you win 3 in a row and give it all back on the 4th. Why? Because deep down there's a belief saying, I don't deserve to earn that much. Douglas explained that these beliefs are not rational. They are emotional programs. You didn't choose them. They were installed. But unless they are brought to the light, they will keep sabotaging you. You might have the best setup in the world. You might have capital, time, books, courses, mentors. But if your mind is trapped by invisible forces, you will self-destruct without even realizing it. Mark Douglas taught that the real turning point in trading happens when you stop trying to change the market and to start changing the trader. That takes courage. It takes looking inward, asking hard questions. What do I believe about money? What do I think about myself? Where does my fear of loss come from? Why do I need to prove I'm right? Each honest answer is a key that unlocks trading freedom. Douglas proposed a simple and powerful exercise. After each trade, write down what you felt. Were you afraid? Were you trying to recover? Did you feel anger, euphoria, impatience? Over time, you start to see a pattern. And then you realize the problem isn't on the chart, it's in your internal narrative. But here's the good news. These hidden forces can be redefined. You are not condemned to be a prisoner of the past. The first step, recognize that the enemy is not the market. It's the version of you that still hasn't learned to trust, that still trades to avoid pain, seek approval, or compensate for a lack. Douglas didn't just want to train traders. He wanted to develop conscious human beings. Because in the end, you are negotiating with your own mind, and only those who have the courage to face it and transform it will win. Have you ever fear the invisible hand behind every loss? Stop to think why fear has so much power over you in the market. It's not the red candle that scares you. It's what it represents: losing money, losing control, losing confidence. Mark Douglas used to say, that fear does not originate from the chart. It originates from within you. And worse, you might be trading with fear even while thinking you're being rational. Fear is subtle. It disguises itself as caution. It convinces you that exiting early is prudence, that not entering is intelligence. But deep down, it's keeping you from executing your edge. Douglas explained that fear is not the problem. Attachment is. You are attached to being right, to not losing, to not feeling stupid, guilty, or like a failure. So your nervous system interprets any risk as a threat to your identity. Then your brain enters survival mode. Fight, flight, or freeze. You enter too early, exit in the heat of the moment, or simply don't act. The worst part, all of this seems logical, but it's not logic. It's emotional programming. Douglas used to say, as long as you trade to avoid pain, you won't be trading to win. Let me repeat. As long as you trade to avoid pain, you won't be trading to win. Fear makes you see the market as a predator. But the real predator is inside. It's the fear of losing self-esteem, of confirming the belief that you are not good enough, of reliving failures that were never healed. Douglas saw this happen repeatedly. Traders with great systems tested setups, flawless risk management, and still sabotage after sabotage. Why? Because fear controls the finger that clicks, and as long as fear is in control, no technique will work. But how do you overcome that fear? Mark Douglas didn't promise magic formulas. He taught emotional reprogramming. The first step: accept the risk, not rationally but emotionally. Accept that any trade can go wrong. Accept that losses are part of the game. Accept that you can lose money and still remain whole. Douglas said you will only be free to act with clarity when you're no longer afraid to lose. That's where discipline begins, not with rigid rules, but with emotional freedom. Without it, you are always reacting, never deciding. Reflect. Do you place a stop, but can't accept being stopped out? Do you say you accept losing, but every loss breaks you? Do you trade with trust in your system or with fear of being wrong? Each of these questions reveals who is really in control, you or fear. Douglas proposed an exercise. Before each entry, ask yourself, am I at peace with any outcome? If the answer is no, do not enter. You're not trading with an edge, you're trading to escape fear. The transformation begins there. When you stop seeing the market as a test of personal worth and start seeing it as a field of probabilities, fear only controls those who try to control the uncontrollable. You don't control the market, but you can control your emotional response to it. That's the power Douglas gave us. Not a miraculous setup, but a key. The key to break free from the cycle of fear, loss, and frustration. Because in the end, the real enemy is not the loss. It's the fear that makes you lose far more than money. Your clarity, your confidence, your peace. Most traders enter the market with an illusion that seems logical but is fatal. The idea that probability thinking, the superpower of the five, is possible to predict the future. They study charts, news, indicators, and genuinely believe that if they analyze enough, they will be able to know where the market is going. This is the invisible trap of the logical mind. Mark Douglas was clear in saying prediction is not the key. Acceptance is, and that changes everything. The market does not reward those who try to guess. It rewards those who know how to respond. The 5% of traders who profit consistently do not think in terms of right or wrong. They think in terms of probabilities. Each trade is treated as a move in a game with a mathematical edge. They don't enter to be right. They enter because they know that by repeating that behavior hundreds of times, profit will come. Not by luck, but by statistics. This is the heart of probability thinking. And as strange as it may seem, it requires a kind of courage. Most people lack the courage to lose without losing your mind. Because when you think in probabilities, you don't need to win now. You need to follow the plan, trust the edge, and repeat with discipline. The common mind does not accept this easily. Since childhood, we've been trained to seek safety, certainty, control. We were taught to avoid mistakes, to fear failure, to resist the unknown. But the market doesn't work that way. The market is an unpredictable ocean, and if you try to control it, you'll be swallowed by the waves. The trader who thinks in probabilities behaves differently. He defines his risk before entering. He accepts the outcome without emotion. He does not evaluate the profit or loss of a single trade as something personal, because he understands a single trade means nothing. What matters is the total, the series, the process. Imagine a casino. It doesn't care if you win at roulette once, twice, or even 10 times, because it knows that in the long run, the edge is theirs. The system is designed to work in the house's favor. The professional trader acts the same way. He creates a system with an edge and executes like a machine with humanity but without drama. Mark Douglas taught us that the greatest enemy of this kind of thinking is the ego. The ego wants to be right. The ego wants to prove its worth. The ego wants to feel special. But the market does not respect the ego. It respects those who act with clarity, calm, and consistency. That's why thinking in probabilities is not just a technique. It is deep mental reprogramming. It is exchanging the need for control for trust in a process. Douglas used to say that the disciplined trader does not trade the market. He trades his beliefs about the market. That means your account does not reflect the quality of your analysis, but the quality of your thinking. Profit is the echo of your internal structure. So ask yourself now, are you trying to predict or are you responding? Are you focused on today's result or on the consistency of the coming years? Do you accept loss as part of the game or turn every loss into a crisis? The answer reveals whether you are among the 95% who struggle or the 5% who thrive. Most. Building unshakable self-trust through discipline. People believe that confidence is born from success. I made money, therefore I trust myself. I nailed the entry, hit the target, so I can believe in my judgment. But Mark Douglas saw it differently. He realized that real confidence doesn't come from the outcome. It comes from repeating what is right, even when everything inside you screams to do what is wrong. Confidence is not a feeling. It is a construction. And the foundation of that construction is discipline. Think of it this way. Every time you say you will follow your plan and you do, you send a message to your subconscious. You are saying, I am someone I can trust. And each small respected decision strengthens that inner bond. It's like training an invisible muscle, and that muscle is what supports your emotional stability in the chaos of the market. Now consider the opposite. Every time you break a rule you created yourself, your mind records, I am not trustworthy. It may seem small, but over time it builds up. You start to doubt yourself. You can't even trust your analysis when it's correct. You feel anxiety, hesitation, a constant fear of messing everything up. Because deep down you know you don't do what you say. Mark Douglas used to say, that trading is like facing yourself in the mirror every day. And that mirror doesn't lie. If you are impulsive, the market will show you. If you are undisciplined, it will charge you. The market doesn't forgive empty promises, it only responds to consistent action. That's why he defended discipline as the source of unshakable self-trust. Not because discipline guarantees profits, but because it builds a stable sense of identity. And when you know who you are, you stop sabotaging yourself. True confidence doesn't need recent victories. It is born from integrity with your own principles. It is the calm of knowing that no matter what happens, you will do what is right. You will respect your loss limit. You will close the trade on time. You will follow the plan, not the emotion. That is freeing. You stop living at the market's mercy. You stop depending on a good day to feel good. You stop needing profits to have self-esteem, and you start living professionally like an emotional adult in a sea of spoiled children. The confidence of a mature trader is not in the result of a trade, it is in the commitment to the process. It is in knowing that even when everything goes wrong, he will not betray himself. And that changes everything, because in the end, the market is just a metaphor. It is just a battlefield where your deepest truths are revealed, and the disciplined trader is the one who at the end of the day can look in the mirror and say with peace, today I was faithful to who I chose to be. Most traders spend their lives reading market psychology like a language, trying to find the perfect indicator. RSI, moving averages, Fibonacci, magical, setups with sophisticated names. But what Mark Douglas learned after years of mistakes, losses, and rebuilding is that no indicator in the world is more powerful than understanding the human mind behind the prices. Yes, the chart is just a translation, a reflection, a collective emotional diary. Every candle, every volume, every sudden explosion is the scream of the silence of thousands of traders dealing with their own emotions. Fear, greed, regret, hope. When you begin to see the market as an emotional dialogue, everything changes. You stop trading setups blindly and start reading behavioral patterns. You start to realize that breakout wasn't technical, it was desperation. That pullback wasn't a retracement, it was relief. And that indecision candle represents much more than a doji. It represents a crowd in doubt, waiting for someone else to decide first. Mark Douglas taught that the mature trader reads the market as if it were a living language. He doesn't react to signals. He interprets intentions. He doesn't fall in love with patterns. He observes reactions. And most importantly, he listens to the silence between the movements, the absence of volume, the lack of follow-through, the moments when the market whispers instead of screams. Imagine you are a detective in a room full of people. Everyone is talking, gesturing, contradicting themselves. Your job is not to listen to the loudest, but to understand who is truly in control. The market is like that. What appears on the chart is not always what is really happening behind the scenes. The average trader rushes. The disciplined one observes. Douglas called this reading the emotional state of the market. He knew that price always carries intention, and those who learn to identify those intentions, even if imperfectly, trade with much more clarity and confidence. This doesn't mean predicting the future. On the contrary, it means responding to the present with awareness. It means understanding that when a move happens without volume, it's like a promise without foundation, that when there is too much euphoria, there is likely a trap, that when no one wants to enter, it might be about to explode. All of this is on the chart, but not in the lines. It's between the lines, and only those who stop searching for shortcuts and start listening attentively can see it. Reading market. Psychology is the edge of the five. They don't guess, they perceive. They don't try to force the market to obey their plan. They listen to what the market has to say and act with respect for its volatile and ruthless nature. The question is, are you willing to listen, or are you still shouting your expectations over a chart that doesn't care? There is a rare and precious state that the best traders in the world know, entering the zone, trading without thought. It is not when you analyze more, nor when you study more. It is when you finally stop thinking and begin to act, with a silent confidence that feels almost supernatural. It is what Mark Douglas called the zone. Entering the zone is not magic. It is a state of full awareness where the trader is no longer fighting the market nor himself. It is when fear disappears, when the desire to be right is replaced by the clarity of simply executing without hurry, without tension, without attachment. Have you ever experienced that? Maybe in another area, playing soccer, playing an instrument, writing something inspired, when you feel that something greater starts operating through you and everything flows naturally. In trading, this state is rare, but possible. And, according to Douglas, it is the peak of a trader's psychological evolution. But pay attention, the zone does not appear because you want it. It arises when you are ready, when you have already made peace with the possibility of losing, when you have accepted that the market owes you nothing, when you have learned to follow your plan even on difficult days, when internal control replaces emotional chaos. Most people try to force this state and they fail because the zone does not tolerate resistance. It demands surrender. It demands that you fully trust the process, not the results. Mark Douglas said, the trader who enters the zone is not trying to make money at that moment. He is simply executing his edge like an Olympic athlete repeating the perfect movement. Profit is the consequence, not the objective. In practice, this state begins with preparation, with discipline, with the habit of recording your emotions, with the courage to admit your weaknesses. The zone is built outside the chart, in the moments when you train your mind not to react impulsively, in the days when you respect your stop even when it hurts, in the nights when you study your mistake without blaming the market. Douglas insisted the mind must be clean, the past must be resolved, the losses digested, greed tamed, anxiety deactivated. Only then does the trader become a free channel, ready to perceive what others cannot see. Entering the zone is when you are not searching for opportunities. You are recognizing opportunities. It is when you are not thinking about the trade. You are simply acting based on everything you have already internalized. And do you know what is most curious? Those who are in the zone appear cold on the outside. No euphoria, no drama. But inside there is a powerful peace, a certainty without words, a synchronicity between mind, body, and market that turns every click into precision. Do you want to reach that point? Then stop looking for shortcuts. The zone is not a destination. For hopeful amateurs, it is the reward for those who discipline themselves so thoroughly that the conscious mind stops interfering and the unconscious takes over with mastery. As Douglas said, the market does not need to change for you to succeed. You are the one who needs to change until nothing remains between you and flawless execution. Are you willing to take that path? The first thing every beginner in the market tries to do is control everything. Control the price, control the paradox of control, surrender to win. The timing, control the profits. It's natural. Human beings seek security, and the market seems to promise it if you're smart enough. But soon comes the reality check. The more you try to control the market, the more it slips away. Mark Douglas called this the paradox of control. To win in the market, you must give up trying to control it. This doesn't mean being passive, but rather accepting that the only real control that exists is within you, in your mind, in your actions, in your emotional responses. The paradox is this: You only gain control over results when you let go of the obsession with controlling them. It may sound confusing, but think of it this way. An airplane pilot doesn't control the wind. He adjusts his flight to navigate through it. The mature trader does the same. He doesn't try to predict the next candle. He positions himself based on his edge and accepts whatever comes. Most traders lose because they seek certainty. But the market doesn't offer that. It only offers probabilities. And trying to trade a probabilistic environment with a mindset of absolute control is asking to be punished. That's what Douglas wanted to teach us. Look, when you force an entry because you can't miss this opportunity, who's in control? The market or your fear of missing out? When you hold on to a losing trade hoping it will bounce back just a little, what's guiding your decision? Analysis or the panic of admitting a loss? True control begins when you accept uncertainty, when you stop resisting losses and start seeing them as part of the game, when you understand that good execution is more important than a good outcome. Mark Douglas was clear. The obsession with control comes from the illusion that you need to be right to make money, but that's false. You only need to be right over the series of trades, not in each one individually. That mindset changes everything. By letting go of external control, you free energy for internal control. You learn to say, this is my rule, this is my entry, this is my risk, and I accept any result. That posture, paradoxically, is what generates consistency. Great traders don't act on impulse. They don't try to beat the market with brute force. They let the market come to them. They control themselves, and that is enough. Want a simple exercise? Before each trade, ask yourself, am I trying to control the market or am I controlling my execution? That question is a mirror, and it shows whether you're on the path of freedom or frustration. Douglas concludes, the more you try to control what is outside of you, the more you become a hostage to your emotions. But when you learn to control what's inside, the market stops being a threat and becomes only a field where your discipline is expressed. Do you prefer to live at war with the market or at peace with yourself? Every trader has felt that gut feeling, a sensation that arises without logical explanation. Intuition, the silent voice of mastery, almost like a whisper. And when you ignore it, the market seems to laugh in your face. But when you follow it, it feels as if you had read the future. Mark Douglas called this true intuition and said it is the reward reserved only for traders who have achieved inner mastery. Most people think intuition is a mystical gift, something some have and others don't. But Douglas was clear. Intuition is not magic. It is the result of mastery. It is the outcome of so much practice, so much study, so much discipline that your mind begins to recognize patterns unconsciously. The same happens with elite musicians, high-level athletes, chess masters. They no longer think, they feel. But here is the secret. Intuition only works when you are free from fear. Fear distorts everything. Fear turns a subtle signal into panic, a calm feeling, into anxiety. And if your mind is full of screaming voices, fear, greed, regret, you won't be able to hear the whisper of intuition. Douglas said that. True intuition is always calm, never urgent. When you feel that you must act. Now, it is almost always emotion, not intuition. Intuition does not beg. It informs, and then it goes quiet. Want to know if it's intuition or impulse? Try this test. Intuition is light, simple, direct. Impulse is heavy, restless, full of arguments. Intuition appears once. Impulse insists, repeats, pressures. Intuition accepts the outcome. Impulse demands to be right. Developing this inner listening takes training. And that training begins outside the market. It happens in silence. It happens in the trading journal. It happens by reviewing your feelings, writing down your perceptions, and evaluating whether they were accurate. Over time, you start to notice a pattern. You realize that strange feeling before the entry wasn't random. It was you beginning to access your own internal radar. Mark Douglas insisted that this is the final stage of the disciplined trader. The mind no longer needs as many charts, as many confirmations. It sees what is there, even if it cannot explain it. This does not mean abandoning technique. On the contrary, it means the technique is so fully internalized that now it expresses itself effortlessly. It is like an artist who no longer thinks about brush strokes. He simply paints. And that is why true intuition only blossoms when the ego is quiet, when fear has been tamed, when greed has been replaced by clarity. Intuition is the voice of integrated emotional experience. It is the result of a trader who has stopped fighting the market and started listening to it. Are you willing to create the silence necessary to hear it? It's not about memorizing setups, becoming the disciplined trader. nor about finding the holy grail of indicators. The true goal of every trader should be to become someone disciplined enough to execute even the simplest strategy with excellence. This is the essence of what Mark Douglas taught. You're not trying to beat the market, you're trying to beat yourself. Discipline in trading is not a technique, it is an identity. You don't use discipline, you become a disciplined person, and that requires more than focus. It requires transformation. A disciplined trader does not rely on luck. He trusts the process. He knows that the result of a single trade does not matter. What matters is the consistency with which he executes his plan. He does not react to the market. He responds with awareness. Douglas said that the disciplined trader is someone who enters the market with a clear statistical edge, executes the plan without hesitation, even in the face of fear, fully accepts any outcome, without losing emotional balance, never blames the market, the setup, or manipulation. He takes full responsibility. This kind of posture requires a radical change in your beliefs. You need to stop seeing losses as punishments and start seeing them as part of the process. You need to stop seeking control over the market and start seeking control over yourself. Being disciplined is not being robotic. It is being free from destructive impulses. It is having mastery over what you feel and still staying true to your plan. And most importantly, discipline is not born from motivation. It is born from commitment. You choose to be disciplined because you want freedom, because you want consistency, because you want to stop living in the cycle of euphoria and despair that destroys so many traders. Douglas called this being available to the market, being present, alert, but without expectations, without pressure. The disciplined trader is the one who lets the market flow and only responds when the opportunity fits perfectly into his mental framework. This is the truth. The more disciplined you are, the less effort you will feel while trading, because discipline eliminates chaos, and where there is no chaos, there is clarity. And with clarity, even the hardest decisions seem simple. Are you ready to become that person? Because true profit is not in the trades, it's in the person you become. This is the moment when the journey becomes a choice. Until now, you've heard stories, concepts, and the challenge: transform your mind or repeat the cycle. Profound teachings. But none of it will have value unless it's put into practice. The true turning point is not what you know, but what you decide to do with it. The truth is harsh, but liberating. The market does not care about your feelings, your experience, or your intentions. It simply reflects in a raw and relentless way the mental state of the one facing it. That is why Mark Douglas taught us that the real battle doesn't happen on the charts, but within ourselves. You can continue repeating the patterns that brought you here: impulsiveness, anxiety, the fear of losing, or the greed to win fast. Or you can take the most challenging step, transform your mind, change your behavior, and take full responsibility for your performance. Douglas affirmed that consistency begins the moment you decide to stop fighting the market and start understanding yourself. And that is exactly why I challenge you with something that goes beyond techniques and setups. It is a commitment to your personal growth. Tonight, before going to sleep, write your own trader statement of commitment, not what you want to gain from this, but who you want to become. Be honest, deep, and clear. For example, I am a disciplined trader. I follow my plan with clarity, accept the result of each trade with maturity, and remain calm in all circumstances because I understand that success lies in consistency, not emotion. Tomorrow, before opening the chart, read that statement. Choose a single trade and execute it not to make money, but to test your discipline. Observe your emotional state before, during, and after. Reflect on your decisions. Ask yourself, was I guided by logic or emotion? Did I follow my plan, or was I ruled by fear? Did I accept the result or try to force the market to prove me right? At night, write your answers. Use this journal to develop awareness. Evolution begins when you stop justifying mistakes and start studying them with humility. Most traders will never do this. They will keep chasing magic setups, perfect entry signals, and shortcuts that don't exist. But you can be different. You can use everything you've learned here to become part of the 5 who not only survive, but thrive, because they understood that mastering the market begins by mastering themselves. The cycle only repeats when the mind stays the same. But if you change, everything around you changes too. Your results, your confidence, your calm in the face of uncertainty. The market will remain unpredictable, but you will become unshakable. If this message resonated with you, write in the comments, "I'm ready to become the trader the market cannot destroy," and Share this video with someone who still believes the problem is out there, when in truth the key has always been within. Mark Douglas left a legacy that cannot be ignored. The market cannot take anything from you that you haven't given first. So stop giving away your peace, your confidence, and your freedom in exchange for immediate results. And start building a mindset that lasts, that wins, and that transforms. Your challenge is not against the market. It is against your own limits. And now that you have the map in hand, the only question that remains is, will you use